All right, well, here we are. It is the Jerry-less no nukes meeting for the end of March. Jerry is still in Nicaragua, apparently. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to hear from Joni Arends. We're going to report back on the recent no nukes webinar. We're going to talk about a monthly action in which everybody can talk about what their monthly action might be as we do our check-in. So, if you've got something to add to the agenda, just wait till you check in, and then you can let her rip. So, Joni, go ahead, and I will share the screen as you requested.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Joni Arends. I'm a co-founder of Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety based in Santa Fe. We started in 1988 when the Department of Energy, or DOE, was proposing to transport plutonium contaminated waste from Los Alamos National Laboratory to the yet unopened waste isolation pilot plant for disposal. That facility is located near Carlsbad, New Mexico. Since then, we've been involved in litigation, we've been involved in community organizing, all of the things that we do as activists. So, one thing that folks suggested to talk about today is that we're going to talk about the draft LANL site-wide environmental impact statement. So that's a 1,200-page document that the Department of Energy is required to release for public review and comment. Comments are currently due April 10th. And you may be asking, what does this document have to do with abolition? First of all, it has to do with abolition because the LANL is the only place in the country with the capability to fabricate the plutonium pits or triggers for nuclear weapons. So the entire nuclear weapons complex is focused at this one facility that is located in a wildfire zone in a seismic zone above our drinking water supply. And as you can see from this graph that's on the screen right now, we can look at the budget and how much investment is going into LANL at this point in time for new nuclear weapons. So in 2022, the budget was 4.8 or $4.1 billion. And when you look at that kind of gray box, the bottom box, you can see that at that time it was about $3 billion or $4 billion for weapons or total. And in 23 it was 4.45 billion, and in 24 it was 5.15 billion. So there's quite an investment that's going on at LANL for new weapon systems, including new warheads for the Sentinel missiles. So by spending a little time and writing comments about your concerns will have a tremendous, it will help us here in New Mexico, but also educate people about what is happening in terms of the investment that's being made. You may have heard that an investment of what, 1.7 trillion over the 30 years for new weapons. This is just a piece of it, but in terms of our budgets, it's a lot of money here. They've hired 2,000 new people. There's a lot more traffic. There's a lot more people flushing the toilet in our desert area here in northern New Mexico, etc. So this document, this draft Lannel Swice, this is just a summary, and I'm sorry it's out of focus. I don't know how to. Oh, I'm out of focus. That's why. Um, so this document is 1,200 pages long, and there's a lie on every single page. So if you do write comments about a certain subject that is particularly of interest to you, just know that. And that's been the methodology for DOE since I started 37 years ago. Some of the things that they're planning on doing besides expanded plutonium pit production, right now they are required to produce 30 pits per year, and they have never made 30 pits. The biggest number of pits that they've made was 11 in 2011, and that is through their entire history when they first started in 1943. So you can see that there may be a lot of grift in terms of the amount of money that is being spent on this project to produce 30 pits per year. Some of the issues, so under the National Environmental Impact or Policy Act, or NEPA, DOE is required to prepare this document. And what it does is it tells us what the plan is. So this plan is for the next 15 years or until 2040 for DOE. And basically what they're saying is that they're going to produce more pits here. They aren't going to comply with any of the treaties, applicable treaties, such as the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. They're going full speed ahead. So there's been 3 slices since NEPA went into became effective. So there was a slice in 1979, there was one in 1999, one in 2008. And during this time, there has been a ramping up for weapons production. So we were expecting that the next slice would come out in 2018. Well, we're only getting it now, which is 17 years later from 2008. And now they're going to extend it to 2040. So basically, this slice may be covering a bigger period of time with less accountability because we're not having a regular cycle. The other thing about New Mexico is that according to the US Census, 30% of the people don't have access to the internet. And DOE did not print any bound copies of this 1,200 page document. They're expecting people to go to the library to read it or go, and that's a really inconvenience for many people. So under NEPA, they're required to provide their alternatives to their plans. But in this case, they have 3 alternatives. They don't have a no action alternative, which means that they would not be taking any action and that everything would stay pretty level. But in this case, they've taken the no action alternative and they've added on projects, so it's not really a no action alternative. Then they have a modernized alternative, which is more weapons, more buildings, more people, the whole thing. And then they have an expanded operations, which is just everything they put in the bucket that they want. So in our comments, we are asking for a true or an accurate no action alternative, and we're asking for a reduced operations alternative as well. Because NEPA says a no action alternative is an actual no action alternative. So there's a lot of injustice in terms of this document, and it's showing itself in ways that we haven't seen before. But basically, they're moving from 30 pits per year to 50 pits per year. And they are planning, they say that they can do it in the old plutonium facility, which was built in 1963, and it has a lot of problems. And one reason that they have to stay in the plutonium facility, which is also known as PF4, is because under Bush 2, the collective we, defeated what they were calling a super Walmart size plutonium facility. And it was called the Chemistry and Metallurgy Research Replacement Building. At the same time, during the 2000s, Bush 2 proposed 3 weapon systems: the reliable replacement warhead, which you might recall, the robust nuclear earth penetrator, or the RNEP, and then they had an interoperable warhead. Well, the people in northern New Mexico, because it was the only place with production capabilities, and our colleagues on the statewide, regional, national, and international levels, helped us to defeat those 3 weapon systems under Bush 2. And then we defeated the super Walmart-sized nuclear facility. So we have a good track record in terms of stopping these systems, and that's what we're working for. Our goal is to stop the expansion of fabricating plutonium pits here in New Mexico. So part of the big issue is that they're going to use, under the third alternative, the most robust alternative, they'll use double the amount of water. They're also proposing to vent radioactive tritium into the air. And so there's a lot of shenanigans associated with this proposed tritium release, because in a couple of days they could release more tritium into the air than what is proposed to be released into the ocean from the Fukushima Daiichi earthquake and tsunami. And the thing about tritium is, because it's radioactive hydrogen, it can get in your body and cause all kinds of havoc, as well as impacting pregnant women, because tritium can cross the placenta. And also the food that we eat. And we use acequias here for watering our crops. It's open water that passes across the fields. And so the plants, if they're exposed to the tritium, results in us digesting tritium as well. So there's great things. They're also proposing a biosafety level 3 laboratory for dangerous materials. They did anthrax work in a proposed biological safety lab level 3 back in under Bush 2, and we defeated them. So we have a good track record, but we need help this time, definitely, in all of this. So we have a action network electronic sample public comment letter that you can use to submit your comments. There's also the Union of Concerned Scientists have sample comments, and Nuclear Watch New Mexico have comments. And if you have time to read all 3 sets, you might find ideas of what your interest is in terms of your knowledge and experience to write comments. There's also, because these documents are on the DOE's website, you can do searches looking for different information that you might want to learn more about before you write your comments. And I'll get those to Greg or Jim and Jim so that you all have access to it. So my voice didn't change very much because otherwise I would be crying that the amount of resources that are being spent in New Mexico, where we have experienced the poverty as well as the injustice for 80 years now, more than 80 years. Does anybody have any questions? Comments?
And so, Joni, where are the places we can get this, these letters, the information to make the comments? Can you give that again?
Yeah, can I put them in the chat? Does that work for everybody?
That would work really good.
Okay.
And then what I'll do is I'll make a recording of this and I'll send it out to everybody.
Okay.
Alice, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I raised my hand. Joni, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that we're making more nuclear weapons when we have so many already. I mean, you know, we have there's like 10,000 on the planet and 9,000 are in the US and Russia, you know. All the other countries have 1,000 between. And then, so if you could put out some kind of an action alert, because it's going to be hard for us to actually go through the DOE documents and figure out what to say. We need suggestions that we can circulate to all our networks. And I would like to put in a special plea that we stop calling these nuclear bombs pits, because the pit, from what I understand, is as big as the bomb that knocked out Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's the trigger for the hydrogen bomb, which is magnitudes larger. And when you say pits, it sounds, you know, it's all right. So a couple of pits, you know, we're going from 20 pits to 60 pits. But people don't know this. So this is just my own personal thought about it. That it's misleading. And I don't know, I mean, I'll certainly send it out to all my networks. I'm with World Beyond War, but we need an action alert. We can't go and figure it out ourselves, you know, what to say. So thank you very much for what you're doing. And
yeah.
Wow.
So our action network focuses on harm to indigenous and land-based peoples, which is different than the other comments that are out there. And so if you can share those, and also Alice, to share it with ICANN, I think if ICANN can put it out as well, that would be really important.
And they should be producing material ICANN on this. I mean, are they working on that at ICANN? I mean, I
Well,
can ask them.
yeah. And I'm going to ask Alicia as well
Yeah.
because I've met her. And yeah.
Because this is the belly of the beast. This is the heart of where all the nukes are coming from. We're the first ones to do it. We're the ones that always say no to offers from Russia, from China. We turn them down. We're always the bad guys. I mean, that's why I was talking about the code pink thing. Like, I went through a whole list of things, but does people know that Stalin asked Truman to turn the bomb over to the UN? When we were allies with Russia and defeated Nazi Germany, and we formed the UN, Stalin said to Truman, turn the bomb, or we had just used it, Hiroshima and we said no. So Russia got the bomb, and it's always like that. We have to know this, that we can't blame Russia or China. We have to take it on ourselves and figure out how to straighten out our own country.
Oh,
Anyway.
well, Alice, do you want to continue and give your update? Since
Well, that's not the code pink thing. I talk about all the missed opportunities. For instance, Russia and China have been begging us to negotiate a treaty to ban weapons in space and to ban cyber war. And they're not going to talk about nuclear disarmament unless we give up our mission to dominate and control the military use of space. And we turn them down. We veto it in the Committee in Geneva, where you need consensus. They've tabled model treaties. We don't even let them talk about it. So if you go to Code Pink Peace Clock, there's a whole list of things that we could actually, instead of talking about getting to doomsday, how do we get to peace day? What are the things that we can do? It's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. I mean, Joni, you guys are like the boy with his finger in the dike, you know. All these years, but there are other things we can do. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, and those links will be in the chat. All right, Jerry wanted us to
There's a couple of
report
hands.
back from recent no nukes webinar. The recent
Jim, there's a couple hands.
couple hands for Joni. All right, Rachel.
Thank you. I 120% second with what Alice said. And also, I would like to bring your attention to such a thing called a dual use. I think this is kind of key word nowadays, because when they say that, this is good for civilian use, but actually they meant to use eventually for military purposes. So, for example, in case of a 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, there are 2 reactors and one of them melted down, but the other one is still there, but they're both closed. But as you know, Bill Gates want to use the unharmed one for the sake of Microsoft's AI technology. And this type of reopening formerly closed nuclear reactors, this type of ideas all across the United States, which is very, very dangerous because, of course, AI is important maybe, but for the sake of providing more energy to AI, the more plutoniums are produced. Where does it go? Nuclear weapons, right? So this kind of a dual use is very, very crucial. Talking about dual use, in case of Japan, there's a small island between Taiwan and Okinawa. There's several, and of which something called Ishigaki Island. It has a beautiful wetland. Now it's reclaimed as a golf course. They say golf course is good for tourism. That's the way to persuade local people. And I bet eventually that golf course will be turned into another self-defense forces bases, right? That those 4 major small islands of the coast of Okinawa has been heavily, heavily militarized the last several years. So dual use is very, very important to be aware of. And when it comes to something civilian, you never know how and when they will turn into military use. And I think it is very important to be aware that ICANN is only focusing on nuclear weapons, right? And I was there at the third member state parties conference at the United Nations a couple weeks ago. And unfortunately, South Africa clearly stated that they are pursuing abolition of nuclear weapons as well as increasing peaceful use of nuclear. Okay. And South Africa will be the fourth meeting's president. That will be November of 2026. Okay. So South Africa as well as Congo, those two African nations clearly stated they want to pursue peaceful use of nuclear weapons. But as long as nuclear weapons, peace doesn't matter whether there's a war, no war, or accident or no accidents, as long as they are mining uranium, indigenous people's human rights are completely destroyed and violated. So this concept of peaceful use of nuclear is oxymoron, and they are against UN Charter. I think that part we have to spread this concept that, peaceful use of nuclear is against UN Charter. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for the update. Greg.
I just wanted to point out, I think you guys all know this, that this pit production boost, and by the way, Joni didn't say this, but they've been having a lot of accidents. Like I didn't, they're just barging ahead without putting the safety things in place. They have this thing. It's like, oh, by the way, there was this many exposures to dangerous radiation last month, and just like fools. They're fools. But this is driving a nuclear arms race. It's a renewed arms race, and we keep saying, oh, China, Russia, we have to keep up with them. It's the other way around. We're the ones driving the nuclear arms race.
Thanks, Greg. All right. Well, I think the group has decided we're going to change the agenda and go through our updates. So that sounds great. Greg, do you have anything more for an update?
No, I don't.
All right.
That's it.
I'm gonna throw in my update and then we'll go around. Harvey and I, there's Harvey. Harvey and I had a great interview with Anthony Donovan and Kelly Lundeen of Nuke Watch, about the states parties on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and it covered the waterfront. And so I put the link to that particular web show and podcast in the chat as a resource. So, okay. And Jerry wanted us to talk about possibly some actions that we could take as a group each month. And I'm thinking, just going right off of what Joni said, Jerry sent a link to a letter that we could sign from Massachusetts Peace Action. And I'm thinking, I've reached out to Shelley from Veterans for Peace. Why don't we do that? Why don't we as a group just develop a letter like VHPI and Save Our VA and get all the members of this group to sign it and send it to our local congressman and just keep peppering them like once a month. And, if somebody's got an idea, I guess since it's my idea, I'll try and coordinate it with Shelley. But if you got an idea for a letter that we could just send out to VFP everywhere to go to our congressman, then I'll work with Shelley and we'll get it up and then we'll get people to sign on. If you kind of like that idea, wave a hand. All right, the ayes have it. Okay, so next, let's see, Peter Barris.
Well, hi. I'm not very organized around this, but we've been having our monthly meetings, and we're kind of a little betwixt and between, but also we've been very active producing documents and letters to agencies, especially John Wilkes has been sending these things out. We were committed to 8 a year, and 4 of them have gone out now, I think, to places like the DOE and the EPA and the VA and so forth, explaining the mythology of the safety of depleted uranium, which is not depleted. That's the meat of it, I would say. We've been also we've been discussing a lot, the Uranium Film Festival folks planning 2 things. One's in Sardinia and one's in Hawaii. And the Hawaiians are about to negotiate for another 50-year lease for $1 a year for a big chunk of their island, so it can have more DU rained upon it as training. And the native Hawaiians to this day regard their territory as a conquered, unceded land. So they're not considering themselves a state of the United States. And we're really trying to stand with them. We've had visits from Kuhan Pike Mander, and I don't think Kiji No visited us yet, but we expect him anytime. So that's what my short-term memory has. Hollis may have more.
Okay, Hollis.
Hollis has been working on some graphic stuff, I think.
Oh man, I reached a roadblock because I didn't understand how badly beta can burn you. I didn't know what the term beta burns meant, and then I didn't understand how gamma rays go right through you. I didn't understand that. So my cartoon starts off with a little character named Dusty, D-U-S-T-Y, and he says, I'm harmless. I won't hurt you. But my friend, Thori, she can burn you, but then Prody, she can kill you and yourself. So anyway, that's how we're starting up. I'm trying to work with a guy that did the Ground Zero comic book in Seattle. Anyway, my big news is on April 11 through 13 at the Seattle Baptist Church up near Capitol Hill in Seattle is going to be a conference put on by Washington Against Nuclear Weapons Coalition, which is sponsored by PSR, Physicians for Social Responsibility. And there's going to be speakers, there's going to be panels, there's going to be workshops, breakout sessions, and the 3rd day is an optional trip to Ground Zero to picket and protest the Trident nuclear submarine base at Bangor. So we've got 6 kids going here, and from a group called Young Activist Leadership Program in Spokane. And we're trying to get a videographer. In fact, I got to meet him at 4 o'clock to film it and make a documentary for Vets for Peace. So we're trying to figure out where to get money for a $15,000 to $20,000 video program, plus get these kids over there. And there's impacted communities are going to be there from the Marshallese and our local impacted community, Twyla Abrahamson from the Spokane tribe. Her mom died of uterine cancer, and her auntie as well. And that Wilpinit mine is, or the Midnight Mine is 8 miles from Wilpinit, and they're trying to say that they're going to cap and cover, I think is the word, and they're draining out treated water down to Blue Creek and eventually into the Columbia, and they say that's the EPA's fix. So it's all just shit. But compared to what's going on at Los Alamos, anyway, I would like anybody here that would like to get in touch with Washington Against Nuclear Weapons Coalition. Sean Arndt is the organizer and either endorse the conference or sponsor it with some funds or attend it. Even Pramila Jayapal is going to do an appearance. Kathy Kelly's coming. It's a star lineup, and we want these kids to get exposed to this early on in their lives so they can understand what's going on. So we're trying to just pull in donations. We only have 2 weeks, so we're working on that big time. So I will send out to the No Nukes list the latest information I have of who's sponsoring, who's speaking, and the trip to Ground Zero. And there are hotels within 3-minute walk of the conference. Right now, there's 52 organizations and growing that have co-sponsored or co-sponsored or endorsed, and there are 177 registrants. There's room for 700 people.
Hey,
So-
real quick, can you put the link to Washington Against Nuclear Weapons into the chat?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Forgot something important.
Well, Rachel, Peter, hold on. Rachel's got a comment on what Hollis just said.
Okay.
And then Peter goes, he has a comment.
This
Go,
is
Rachel, go.
unrelated to what Holly said. So if Peter has something related to that, please go ahead.
Okay.
No,
Peter, go ahead.
I forgot an item of importance from our update, which is that John Wilkes is working on something called the Plutonium Trail Caravan, which is based on the fact that the plutonium is being carried all over the place. He has made a medallion of a truck mowing down the state bird, Roadrunner. There are 22 generators and 13 substantial, 8 are the big ones. What they do is they pick a section each year and go to the towns, villages, and educate people who don't even know that nuclear waste is within a mile of their homes. They've been hauling that for 26 years, and they want to do it for 60 more. And the waste is heading for Texas solid waste facility through New Mexico. So that's an exciting project. If you know John, get in touch with him. Thanks.
And here's the button.
Joni's showing the button.
All right. Wait a minute, hold it up there. I want to take a picture.
Okay. Okay.
Great, got it. Thanks.
Okay, great.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, continuing along. Harvey, what's your update?
Well, you stole my thunder. I was going to talk about third meeting of state parties and the report they gave, which was just spectacular, especially all the side meetings they had and Kelly Lundeen and the demonstration they had out there. So I just recommend everybody watch that show because.
Well, they got to listen.
Yeah, well, okay. Listen, well, you can use your imagination, I guess, but they were great. And I don't have a lot more up to date beyond that. I was not aware that Lanel was going to be making all of the plutonium pits. I thought the Savannah River was supposed to be taking on a large portion of that. Of course, they're not going to be ready to do that for several years. And none of this is going to happen for several years, if ever, considering the budget.
Yep. All right. Excellent. Susan Lamont.
Well, I can't say we're doing much here in Sonoma County about nuclear stuff. I've been trying for 2 years, and everybody thinks other things are more important. So that's we're protesting at VA clinic and in favor, obviously, of the VA, and we go to things for Palestine and anti-Trump stuff. But I can't seem to raise any interest about the nuclear issue. I think I've been told, well, it's not that imminent or something. And, I try to
Until it
argue
is.
again. Yes, well, I tell them that it is, but so the most recent thing I've done is like yesterday, our Peace and Justice Center has a bi-monthly publication that it puts out, and I got asked if I could write something related to the climate because of it's going to be this publication will be released near Earth Day. So I just wrote an article on the on VFP's climate crisis and militarism project, and that's about as close to nuclear as we've gotten. Our
Susan,
VFP here is
yeah.
our VFP here is very small, and there's four of us who are active. It's the youngest being 65, and me at 76, and then two 82-year-olds.
So a real puppy at 65. So, but Susan, didn't I thought I saw an email, and this might relate to Hollis, where the climate action and that group got a grant. I think they got a grant. And so Hollis, you might,
Yeah, I don't know.
check with them if you're looking for funds, you might be able to write up a grant, because I think that climate action working group got money. And get it before Musk finds out.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tip. Thanks for the tip. I'll check it out. Thanks.
Sam.
Yeah.
Wear this today. Thank you, everybody. Susan, I've got a follow-up question to start, and it ties in with the concern that we've got here. Let me lower my hand. Boy, did you come up with some really important issues, and one of them is, I think all of us experience this, we end up in the back seat all the time, and I think that's for a couple of reasons. There's always something that seems more immediate. We have to keep coming up with angles to make this threat of nuclear annihilation relevant when we really shouldn't have to. And one of the angles that I've heard that we've been using so far is indigenous peoples' lands. Okay. But that one then puts us in the competition with a number of other problems involving indigenous people. Not to minimize them, but so often with these issues, I get this feeling of take a ticket and form a line to the right. Bounce this off of everybody for consideration. This crap costs tons of money.
Right.
And exposing the people who are making money off of this and the nefarious lobbying connections, I think fits in very much with a bigger critique of the way Trump is handling the federal government. Every time I hear Trump is going to shrink the federal government, I want to scream, no, he's not, because there's part of it that he's expanding. Thank you. Okay. You know that, and I know that. He's shrinking the parts of the federal government that don't make him and his friends money. Okay. The threat of nuclear annihilation is really difficult to pitch because everybody here knows what a threat it is. And yet it's so easy to go into denial because it's too hard to contemplate for a lot of people. We had this golden opportunity when Oppenheimer came out. But unfortunately, I don't think we were able to ride that wave, or at least not ride it long enough. So just for everybody to put on their thinking caps, for me, I think the big issue is how much money it costs and how it fits in with the agenda of the plutocrats, you know, on top of the dangers. Now, this does tie in with one other thing I want to bring up before I let it go to everybody else. And Rachel and I have been talking about this. I'm kind of concerned about the convention. I notice we aren't talking about having a profile there, a presence. Rachel's been working really hard on getting a speaker who's a Hibaksha, a victim of the bombing. I mean, look, folks, it's the 80th anniversary. I'm doing my work as a Japan specialist on the antecedents, the decision to drop the bomb, who the criminals on the American side were, and what they did afterwards. Because you know what? These guys had a big role in the Vietnam War. They were still on the stage. And they've got their disciples who are active now. You know, so this is very much something in the present. Nevertheless, I don't know where we'll fit. And in fact, at risk, of sounding a little cynical, I got involved in planning for the convention because I wanted to make sure that I could get my own voice in edgewise about this issue of dropping the bomb and all the new information showing that we didn't need to do it. Okay. And actually, ironically, the new information showing that we didn't need to do it comes in the form of a really crappy argument saying that we did. And it's in the process of poking holes through that argument that we get even further. Okay. Nevertheless, I still don't know. We've got about 4 months before the convention. I don't know where we'll fit in. And somebody could accuse me of going out for coffee or falling asleep when the convention planning committee worked on this. But to the best of my knowledge, and Rachel can correct me, the whole thing is still a committee of one. We don't have subcommittees working on different things. For example, as you probably all know, it's at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas campus. They're only finding out now how much room they have for exhibitors, okay, and vendors. Hey, that's supposed to be a major source of income for convention. And I know of publishers, and you folks probably know of some even better than I do, who write terrific books and educational materials on the nuclear industry, nuclear war, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to see them there. I'd like to see people go past their booths when they get out of a session. The most I've gotten from Shelley Rocket is, well, we have forms, fill out a form, and we'll consider it. Now, the thing is, I know that, and I don't want to criticize these people when I don't know what limited resources they have. They've got a lot of challenges. I mean, we're still recovering from the pandemic. We've had a lot of organizational turbulence at the top. To the best of my knowledge, there is no Las Vegas chapter of Veterans for Peace. So there's no local handoff. And by the way, it's going to be hotter than hell. That doesn't help. So I ask all of you, you very special people, how we can make the best of this. So, Jim, thanks for letting me rant on about this.
Rant on. And Rachel, if you can hold on, I want to just check in with Roberto, and then you have the floor. So, Roberto, do you want to check in with us? What's going on?
I'm here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm an associate member. So this is the first time I've joined this meeting. I was talking to Greg this afternoon at our weekly peace vigil.
Thank you.
So I'm involved with this weekly peace vigil that Ken Myers was doing for 22 years, and right now we're just getting ready for his memorial next Friday the 4th, and there's going to be special activities for this. So we really miss him already. We keep talking about him. He's a great inspiration. And then I'm also working with Stop Forever Whip, as are a couple other people here. And so we just had our meeting, and we're just, really trying to get the governor to push the Department of Energy to, deny the permits here. There's a lot of agreements that were made that the government is refusing to honor. They're supposed to be looking for other repositories, like people said, in other states, and it's just here now. So basically, when I talk about the nuclear industry, I talk about New Mexico being a nuclear sacrifice zone, because we have the uranium mining, the atomic bomb was developed here in Los Alamos. We have the transportation issues with the accidents, like people have talked about before. We have the website for the burning it. So we've got it all here. So we continue to struggle against that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Roberto. And thanks for reminding us we got to remember our Ken Mayers on April 4th.
Yes.
So, all right. And I'm sure everybody's gotten a link so that they can sit in and watch that. So,
Could
all
you
right.
send it again? I don't know. I just loved him. He was so fabulous. And I wrote that nuclear posture review, the first draft, and he really fixed the whole thing. He was fabulous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Rachel?
Yes. Please allow me to talk about Ken Mayer first. I met him 2015, when Ken and I are two of 10 delegations to Okinawa. Ken and other people went to Jeju Island, Korea first, then joined me in Okinawa. And during our busy schedule, Ken asked me to go along with him to a home overlooking beautiful ocean, which was he and his family used to station during the Vietnam War time. He was an NSA officer, and we knocked on the door of the house, and the present owner welcomed us. And he looked around the house and verified that exactly that was the place where he and his family, his two daughters were born in Okinawa, and they grew up in that house. So I didn't realize that was kind of his sentimental journey to visit Okinawa. That was 2015, December. And I thought I would have more chances to visit Okinawa with him. Unfortunately, it didn't actualize. But anyway, later, a few years later, I interviewed him about his life and asked him what was the motivation for him to join in the peace movement. He said when he was stationed in, I think that was Taiwan, as a part of his mission while he was stationed in Okinawa, he was eating rations. It was a canned something, and he threw away that can, empty can. And the local kids came, swarm into that can and tried to, obtain that empty can. And he asked those kids, "What are you going to use it for?" And they said, "Oh, we're going to fix the hole on the roof." And that struck him, the poverty. He said he thought he was helping local people to live better way, but actually his whole military presence made those people in poverty. That was his motivation to get into a peace movement. And God knows that he spent the rest of his life for the peace activism, and I highly admired his legacy. Thank you. So today I would like to share two of my projects. One is a project 1030. 1,030 times the United States conducted nuclear tests in the US territory. The real number is 1,032, but those two are, of course, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah. So 1,030 were in our own land, on our own territory, which including former territory, so-called Marshall Islands nowadays. And what I'm doing is collecting wood ash samples. If you have fireplaces or wood stoves, it's about a time for people to cleaning up those winter device. So when you have a chance to cleaning up, please save the wood ash sample in double layered sandwich size Ziploc bag. Send it to me. Well, first, you have to donate $50 to the Veterans for Peace because we have to pay for the lab to measure the radiation level. The bunch of labs in Japan where they can measure the level of cesium-137, which is very easy to measure. Okay, and we would like to send you the results as well as making a radiation map across the United States. Why are we doing this? Because we want to prove that our land is already contaminated enough and we don't need to reopen any more nuclear reactors. We don't need to construct any more nuclear pits or weapons whatsoever. What we need to do is cleaning up. So this is the purpose of Project 1030. Another thing is you guys are all invited to a film viewing occasion, which will take place this coming Monday, March 31st from 6 p.m. of Eastern Time. This one is a TV program broadcasted in Japan 2011, revealing the fact that there were so many stockpile of nuclear weapons secretly stored in Okinawa, as well as there was a nuclear weapons trading facility in mainland Japan. And not only that, there were nuclear weapons sortie bases all across Japan. So this is about Mr. Tatsuo Sekiguchi, who was a reporter, journalist at the Nagasaki Broadcasting System, who interviewed painstakingly efforts of him was concentrated in this program. He interviewed 4 U.S. veterans who got involved with nuclear weapons while they were stationed in Japan. So please join us. And this particular program is heavily copyright issue. It has a copyright issue with the original TV producing company called TBS. So we cannot publicize this one. I cannot give you the video link or whatsoever. Mr. Sekiguchi generously promised that we can do it only in closed session. And I would like to have your recommendations to show this video as one of those evening time movie programs during our convention. So that I will ask at the end of the showing this. I think this is very appropriate to show this in Nevada, where the nuclear, very close to nuclear test sites, and also there we have so many victims still in the neighborhood. And I would like to know how the weapons that produced in the United States were used in Japan during the Cold War period. And if that kind of things were done in Japan secretly from the sites of Japanese local people, I think maybe it's still going on. If you think of this heavily militarized Japan nowadays, as of 2+2 conference of last July, the self-defense forces of Japan completely is under U.S. command. Okay, so they are building military infrastructures left and right all across Japan. It is unsinkable mothercraft. You know, this is horrible. But anyway, you can imagine what could be going on right now from watching this video. Thank you very much. And I'm going to send you the invitation and all information in the chat room. Please take a look at those 2 information. Thank you.
And Rachel, do you want to put your home address so that people know where to send their wood ash?
I will do that once I receive the payment information.
Okay.
It's in the doc sheet uploaded there.
Thank you.
All right. Jerry wanted us to report back from the recent No Nukes webinar.
Oh,
Did
there's some hands.
everybody have a chance to see that? Looks like. And so any feedback about what your take was on that, Sam?
Just a couple of quick follow-ups to what Rachel was talking about.
Okay.
Rachel, if you could be sure to let everybody know how to get their $50 to Veterans for Peace, because it goes to a general fund, and I don't want them throwing any wild parties with your money. Okay, that's one thing. And the other is just to say, as a Japan specialist, someone following all this, what Rachel's talking about is really super remarkable. If you think about the Japanese people after the end of World War II and their thoroughly understandable anti-war sentiment, I mean, you ought to see what the demonstrations were, for example, in 1960 against AMPO, the Joint U.S.-American Security Treaty, and the fear that American ships with nuclear weapons would be in Japanese ports. I have Japanese friends who say, look, we don't want any part of this. And our big concern is the Chinese or the Russians might not otherwise bomb us, but if we've got all of these American nukes, we're going to die too. So it sounds like a real dynamite expose, Rachel. Thanks for your work. That's it.
Absolutely. And I can kind of relate. I was home ported in Yokosuka, and whenever the nuclear subs were in, then the protesters were out in front of the main gate. And impressive. So, Alice,
Yeah, I just, for the record, Atoms of Peace was because we had an accident in the Marshall Islands. One of our hydrogen bombs hurt this Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon. It hurt, I don't know if they died or whatever, but anyway, it went amiss, this hydrogen.
They died. They
And
died.
Eisenhower did Atoms of Peace, and they gave Japan free nuclear powers to make the bomb lovable. That's how the whole goddamn thing got started, to make it acceptable. And they couldn't get anybody to build it in America, like, General Electric. The whole thing got subsidized. Price Anderson. It was all a campaign to make Japan love the bomb. We gave them free nuclear power. Thank you, Fukushima. We gave them everything to kill them once again. Anyway, it's so awful when you think of the story.
okay. Rachel, you've got your hand up again.
I would like to piggyback what Alice said and the Sam said. First of all, what Alice said, yes, and the Lucky Dragon number 5 was one of about several hundred fishing boats who was operating in those days. There's so many more, thousands of victims of this radiation. And nowadays, their descendants are suing Japanese government, and they may come up to suing government of the United States, who you never know, but they are the growing consensus that they are under big ramifications of nuclear tests. That's number one. And about the payment of the Project 1030, when you make a donation, how do you say, memo box, you please make sure to identify that $50 is for Project 1030. And Shelley is generous enough to have created our own record. So she will make sure to send that money to me so that I can send forward a payment to the labs in Japan, as well as I can put all together in one single package and send it to Japan. And what else? There was something more. Oh, about the Hibakusha couple coming from Japan. They are 86 years old, and husband was in Hiroshima. He is a very, very unique person. He's a super progressive person who started doing anti-nuclear activism while he was in the middle school, continued on all the way up to college. And when he graduated from Tokyo University, which is equivalent to Harvard in Japan, he was not able to get the job in Japan because he was regarded as a very dangerous individual working against the government of Japan. So he gave up on getting the job in Japan. Instead, he came to the United States, get the job as a consulting firm. So he does speak good English, and he does have a very clear vision about what the nuclear supposed to be or should not be. And although his speech time is not that long, but I'm going to encourage him to join this side events and that side events. And please encourage him to bring to your side events if you are planning anything, and ask for his opinion. He's a very, very articulated individual. And if anybody goes to Las Vegas by your own car, it would be great if you can provide him and his wife car ride between their lodging and the campus. That's a huge support for us. And as of now, I just don't have that financial resources to do so. So please keep that in your mind. If you know anybody who is driving between their hotel and campus, please ask them if they can provide their ride to that couple. That's very important. Thank you.
Okay. Should we check with Veterans for Peace to see if they could pay for a rent-a-car for you guys?
Did already, then they don't have budget.
Okay.
Okay. Susan is using her own mileage for that couple to get the airlines, transportation. So
yeah. Okay, Greg.
Yeah, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but people want to do the Project 1030. It's very, very important that you know where your firewood came from, because if you are going to a grocery store and buying that prepackaged wood, it could come from anywhere, and that won't help the map. Um, so you need to know, right? Ask your firewood supplier. Out here they call them leñeros, or whatever they call them where you are. Just ask them, where do you harvest the wood?
Thank you. That's a very important point. Thank you, Greg, for mentioning it. And when they start filling out the application form, there is a segment that they have to identify where that wood is from. So, yes, it's very important. Thank you.
Just as a side note, my wood came from just outside Los Alamos National. It's from the national forest that surrounds the laboratory, but they didn't find much. So I'm thinking it must be upwind from the lab.
Okay, so it doesn't glow.
Well, only when it's on fire.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, Jerry's going to be upset unless we provide him some feedback with regard to the No Nukes webinar. And I personally, I think it suffered a little bit from what Susan was talking about, where people just are not quite that interested. I mean, we had 100 and some people on, but when you have KJ No and Norman Solomon, you think just the names should have encouraged more people to come. But then, nuclear Armageddon is just, well, it's dropping down the list of priorities every time Trump does something stupid, which is really regular. So I thought it was a really good webinar. I just was disappointed that it wasn't nearly as attended as it should have been. So any other comments? Okay,
I attended,
Sam.
and it was great.
If I may, yeah, and can everybody hear me okay? I guess
Yep.
so. Great. I'm probably the minority report here. I thought that the Korean account of the near coup was fascinating, but frankly, being blunt about it, I don't think it belonged there. Yes, Korea is a hot spot for nuclear confrontation, but you could make a greater case for Ukraine right now. And we had Norman Solomon. It would have been wonderful to pick his brains about how to message. I'd love to see another half hour spent asking him how, as advertisers, as marketers, we could segment our messages to the American people. So that's my critique. I mean, the Korean journalist was fascinating. He knew his stuff. It was terrific. I was just thinking, it doesn't belong here, frankly. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Sam. Any other comments with regard to the webinar? All right, we are at an hour and 13 minutes. Any other comments, period? And what I'll do is, to everybody in the No Nukes group, I will send this out. So make sure if you don't get emails from the No Nukes group, make sure you put your email in the chat, and I'll make sure you get this. But if nobody has anything to say, we'll call it a day, and I'll let all you go to find some sort of adult beverage around someplace.
Thank you, everybody.
Going once, going twice, and there we go.
Night.
Way to go, Peter. All right, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.